Welcome to the Servant Leadership Online Training Summit. 10 days to better relationships and results. Brought to you by Ken Blanchard, Barrett Kohler Publishers, and Conscious Marketer. Learn more at servantleadershipsummit.com.
Our next speaker, Bobby Allen, is the founder and CEO of Legacy Leadership and coaching a faith-based nonprofit leadership training organization. He is also a member of Forbes Coaching Council, where he shares his expertise on Forbes.com. Bobby is an executive coach with a passion for speaking and training. I know you're going to love his energy and insights.
Welcome back to the Servant Leadership Online Training Summit. I'm Richard Tobinger, and I'm the co-founder of Conscious Marketer and the co-host and co-producer for the event. And for our next presenter, we're going to be speaking with Bobby Allen. And Bobby today is going to be talking to us as how leaders we can move from titles to towels. And today he's going to be covering living your life to give it away, our presence, learning to lead from laying down, our posture, and then he's going to talk a little bit about the progression of leadership or our power. And at the end of the talk, Bobby's going to tell us, give us a servant leadership practice. So make sure you stick around to the end. Hi, Bobby. How are you doing?
Doing well, Richard. Thanks for the privilege to be here, man. This is an awesome opportunity.
Thanks for coming and showing up. This has been really a powerful summit with all the speakers. Now, before we dive into your topic today, Bobby, we're asking all the presenters to share an answer to the question, why servant leadership is so important in our world today. What is your perspective on that?
Well, Richard, one thing I've had the privilege in my almost 30 years of being a leader and coach and leading leaders and helping companies and organizations, I've learned that we live in a world where right is wrong and wrong is right. A world that's underled, therefore underfed. And I believe the blueprint for success for any human, a business, a church, an educational institution, a governmental agency, a military group, even a volunteer group, I think it's accomplished through a servant leadership model. And it's very important. Matter of fact, I jotted down a couple of thoughts that I wanted to make sure I served well. And I jotted down here simply stated, servant leadership allows organizations to create excellence at every level while removing obstacles so people can succeed both personally and professionally.
Okay.
It's critical.
Yeah. That's a great definition. Well, let's move into your presentation, and you're going to give us kind of a presentation on these three ideas around titles to towels. So I'm kind of interested in hearing about that. And you serve both ministry, and you also work with John Maxwell in his group. So you serve also businesses as well. So this would be pretty interesting.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Well, you know, after about 25 years or so, I've had the privilege of serving, like I said, both the faith community and the business community as a life business executive coach, a leader of leaders, keynote speaker. And regarding the faith community, one thing I have discovered is the church is amazing. I mean, you talk to anybody of faith and they'll tell you it's the hope of the world. But I think the church is in desperate need of more Christ-sufficient servants than more self-sufficient scholars. A leadership that's more about crosses than crowns, weakness than strength, towels than titles. And in fact, almost 20 years ago, I had a 4-year run at a very successful church that I started, and everything fell apart in my life and leadership. I mean, the amazing and exciting vision I had and experience was short-lived, and it turned into a nightmare. I mean, hurting and being hurt, pain, humiliation, disillusionment, betrayal, struggles, confusion. That became my reality. And I remember feeling, Richard, I'm done. It's over. I've lost everything. I felt helpless and I felt hopeless. Yeah. And during that season, I committed to personal reflection and getting coaching and counseling. And it led to a personal transformation in me and a paradigm shift in my thinking of what leadership is and what leadership is not. So in short, I was transformed from being a title leader to a towel leader, what I refer to as servant leadership or a towel leader. So I had to unlearn and relearn everything that I had read about, written about, studied about, and taught about for years about this thing called leadership. And I was challenged to actually critically and analytically analyze everything that I had been teaching and saying. Not that everything was incorrect, but I needed to go to the next level. I needed to experience what was the demise, what happened. I mean, this was the fastest growing church in the county. We were the greatest thing since sliced bread, and this thing just crashed. Right. I went from hero to zero.
Right.
And I thought, what happened? And when you experience something like that, it's time you show up and go, all right, back to basics.
Right.
I got to live with the beginner's mindset and figure this out.
Yeah.
So I found out a lot, and I was reminded of a lot. You think you know it, but I needed the truth of what leadership is, not etched into my heart and burned on the back of my eyelids. And I was reminded leadership is not about being in charge. You can be the boss. You can be in charge, and you'll get people's loyalty from 9 to 5 in the company. But when you're their leader, you got their loyalty 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. So leadership is not about being in charge. Leadership is not about titles. You can have the corner office, the best parking space. You can have the cool title. You can have so many degrees that they call you Dr. Fahrenheit. But it doesn't mean you're a leader, right? It's not about titles. The leadership isn't about personal attributes. Charisma, personality, great traits to have, very important if you want to not just communicate, but connect with people. Charisma will get you in the room, but it's character that keeps you in the room.
Right.
So I had to be reminded, no, leadership is not about personal attributes, nor is leadership about management. For years, we thought leadership and management were the same thing. And we've come to realize management does a great job at systems and policies and procedures, and leadership about change and transition and next steps and growth. So actually, I began to be reminded and learn all over again what leadership really is. And then I started looking at some of my colleagues again and saying, I'm going to enter this thing like someone with a beginner's mindset. Like I don't even know what I'm doing. So I got to put everything on hold and walk in there and say, I want to learn and absorb and grow. And I was intrigued with Peter Drucker again. He said a leader is someone who has followers. Back in the 80s, one of my mentors, Howard Hendricks, world-renowned leader and author at the time, he used to tell me, hey, Alan, if you look over your shoulder and no one's following you, you're not a leader, buddy. You're just taking a long walk. Like, wow. Right. All right. And you need to understand, Richard, about those days in the 80s, I looked behind my shoulder. I didn't have many people following me. Right. So I was pretty intrigued, right? And Warren Bennis, he says leadership is the capacity to translate vision into reality. Right. I thought, nice. Even Bill Gates, as we look ahead, Bill says, into the next century, leaders will be those who empower others. And having the privilege to be trained by John Maxwell and being one of his keynote speakers and teachers and trainers, John always tells us, leadership is influence. It's nothing more, it's nothing less. And of course, Ken Blanchard, a leader is a servant first, a leader second. I mean, is that sweet? I mean, that's just right there. You can grab that thing. That's the cookies of life on the bottom shelf right there. Right. And Graham Cook, he says that leadership is first and foremost a progression. You first start as a servant, then you graduate as a steward, and then you slide home as a bond slave. Right. And I thought, intriguing. I need to find out about this progression from servant to steward to bond slave. And of course, when you think of leadership, I think of the greatest leader who ever walked the planet. I mean, Jesus himself said, those who wish to be first should be last, but the greatest among you be the least. He said, in fact, I didn't even come to be served, but I came to serve and give my life away. Right. And I thought, well, that's crazy. I mean, that's pretty profound, looking at this leadership thing. So as you can imagine, here I am, I'm trying to figure out what's up, what's down, what happened, what's going on, and I'm going to school again as if I've never heard about this thing called leadership, trying to figure out what it is. Right. And I'm intrigued. I'm thinking, wow. And what I finally realized that I turned into something that I later labeled as a title leader, a title leader. And I think, did I start there? Is a title leader bad? Is it wrong? What happened? As I'm reflecting and growing and trying to figure out We got companies and businesses running, Fortune 500, Fortune 50, Fortune 100 companies. We see some of them tank. We see some of them take off. We see people meeting their bottom line goals like it's nothing, and we see other people struggling. If everything rises and falls on leadership, then what in the world happened?
Right.
What are we going to do with this thing? And so I began to realize, well, there's something called title leadership, and there's something that I realized called cowl leadership. So I went ahead and used these labels, and I began writing about it and thinking about it for years and just studying it. So let me compare and contrast a little bit about the title leader versus the towel leader. Title leadership I labeled as the kind of traditional leadership model, if you will, the old control and command. I call it the doobie-doobie-doo leadership model. I'm going to do more, I'm going to be better. I'm going to do more, I'm going to be great. I'm going to do more, I'm going to be great. Notice the emphasis is on I. See, title leadership can, if you're not careful, especially if you get successful, it'll turn tricks on you. It'll become what I call the author of hallucinations. It'll make you see things that are not there and believe things that are not true about yourself. Right. One of my mentors told me, he said, hey, Alan, don't ever ponder in private what people tell you in public. The day you do, you're a tragedy waiting to happen.
Right.
Well, that happened to me. I mean, we just took off. We were just killing it. And little by little, like just being stuck in quicksand, the title leader can lose touch with the heart and the emotion of themselves and people and get stuck on just the head and get stuck on just what needs to be done. Do leadership. Yeah. I remember a story, maybe you heard about it, Richard, about the rich young ruler. This guy, the rich young ruler, this guy's got bank, he's got clout. I mean, he's the guy. He's like the millennial genius of his age. He's the entrepreneur genius. He comes running to Jesus, falls on his knees and says, hey, what must I do? I've been hearing about you. You're doing this whole global enterprise thing. You got this global planetary vision thing going on. Hey, I want in. I know about money and success and stuff. And Jesus, he look at his leadership. He's profound. He says, oh, you know all this stuff. You know, don't steal and don't cheat. You know, honor your mom and dad. The rich young ruler says, I've done all that, man. I got that. Check. Done that since my youth. Jesus says, yeah, that's true. He goes, well, you lack one thing, though. I tell you what, why don't you sell everything you have and go give it to the poor and come follow me? Richard, he offers this guy, this rich young ruler, a life and leadership promotion. He says, come be on my team. Be one of my executives.
Right.
I got something for you, man. Hang out with me. I'll raise your leadership lid, and we'll do some things on the planet together. You wanna? This guy drops his head, saddened look, turns away and walks depressed the other direction because he was a man with much affluence and riches.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with having money. Nothing wrong with having riches. It wasn't even about riches. It's what he tied to it. You see, he came with his, what must I do? What must I do? Jesus kind of did a little backflip on him. He didn't answer his IQ question with an IQ answer. He answered his IQ question with an EQ answer.
Right.
He said, what you lack is knowing how to connect with people,
right.
Knowing how to love people and like things. You got it backwards. Servant leadership, he didn't say the words. Jesus didn't introduce the label. He was going to say that for Ken. But, he didn't introduce the label. He says, you got to connect with yourself and people. Right. You got to know that people are your greatest asset.
Yeah. And
you're disconnected. So really, you're like a successful failure. You're doing great in business and you're doing poor in relationships and emotions. You're a successful failure.
Right.
The guy missed it. Clueless. Missed it a mile away. You see, he was trying to tell him, title leaders, we can get void of relationships after a while, which could turn into narcissistic, kind of self-absorbed places and spaces, not because a title leader doesn't do well, doesn't have the right motives, doesn't care. It's just, it can turn into blinders is what happens. And for example, not only does it turn into doobie-doobie-doo and it becomes more about me, my, and mine, but after a while you can forget truths that you knew before. Like relationships always trump vision. And that when your professional life outpaces your personal life, you're a tragedy waiting to happen. As a coach, I get the privilege to sit around with sharp CEOs all across the country. And I tell you, not only do I respect them and honor them and help them as their thinking partner and as their coach and leader to take their business and their lives to the next level, but one thing I have bumped into, many of them, their professional life is outpacing their personal life, and they're a tragedy that's in the making. What happens is when you get more successful and you grow and your company grows, your organization takes off, if your professional life is outpacing your personal life, you're not going to have the emotional bandwidth to handle the pressure and the weight of more money, more assets, more privilege, more power.
Right.
The building we're sitting in, if it wasn't for what? The load-bearing walls, what would happen?
Collapse.
The building would tumble down. It would collapse. Well, for the human being, emotions, healthy emotions and relationships are the emotional load-bearing walls that keep humans, by design, running at optimal level and being able to express who they are and what they need to do at full capacity. And the rich young ruler didn't have the emotional awareness, the self-awareness to pull his next step of growth off. He was offered the life and leadership promotion, but he missed it. Title leaders can miss stuff.
Yeah.
And so we got to remember that relationships always trump vision.
Yeah.
That my personal life cannot be outpaced by my professional life.
Mm-hmm.
I need to be able to keep connecting. I need to be bigger on the inside than I am on the outside. Why is it that this can begin to seep in to a title leader's demeanor and presentation and skill set and gift mix? It just shows up little by little. Like a cancer, it begins to erode away. And it can mess with our motives. My empire, my building, my company, my church, my volunteer organization. And pretty soon, the people are a means to your end.
Yep.
Pretty soon, you get people and hire people to help you do what you want accomplished,
yep,
instead of hiring people to find out what they want to do and what they want to accomplish.
Yep.
So these are some of the trappings of the traditional leadership model, what I call a title leader, the title leadership. And what happens if I've had CEOs ask me, and even lead pastors, what's the bottom? What's at the core of a title leader? This sounds like me. This happened to me, they say.
Yeah.
I don't mean this to happen. I didn't want this to happen. And I said, I get it. It happened to me 20 years ago. And they said, well, what's at the core of it? I said, you know what it is? It's a low EQ, low emotional intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at the blueprint of how human beings are wired, the emotional relational capacity of humans actually runs in a way that brings optimal performance and gives you the greatest return and reward for what you're trying to accomplish. And when you're emotionally wobbly and you can't figure out why, it affects and infects not only your company and your business, it affects your personal world.
Mm-hmm.
And it begins to drive you to do things and say things and make decisions that may not be the wisest.
Right.
And so what are the four major pillars, as I call, of the EQ that are missing that create title leader blindness? One is self-awareness.
Yep.
The other is self-management. Self-awareness is the ability to say, who am I? What am I thinking? What am I feeling? It's the high-level, full-capacity leader that can say, why do I do what I do when I do it? Why do I think what I think when I think it? Why do I say what I say when I say it? It's self-awareness.
Yep.
And with that self-awareness is self-management. Now you have an EQ pillar that says, now that I'm more in touch with what I'm doing, what I'm thinking, what I'm saying, what am I going to do about it?
Mm-hmm.
How do I work? What are my next steps? What strategies might I engage in to experience my next steps? And when you get a CEO, a high-level leader, a Fortune 500 company, a mom-and-pop shop, a church, whatever it is, when you get a leader or an individual who has high usage in self-awareness and low usage in self-management, that gap will really become a difficult space for them because they're aware of things about themselves, but they have no clue what to do with it.
Right.
That's when they fall into decision making, numbing agents, whatever it is. They're going to
Yeah.
turn into what I call a professional anesthesiologist. They're going to numb out somehow,
Right.
because especially if you're succeeding and winning and growing, it's just too heavy. It's too powerful. Success and money is way too heavy. Look at some of your athletes and Hollywood stars,
Yeah.
young, beautiful, amazing young people with millions of dollars, looks, affluence, talent. They crash and burn. Why? Their emotional infrastructure, their emotional load-bearing wall was absent or wobbly or faulty and couldn't handle the power, the success, and the weight.
Yep.
Their professional life was outpacing their personal life. Richard, I believe that there won't be leadership conferences anywhere in the world very soon where EQ is not one of the main topics talked about in leadership books and leadership conferences.
Yeah.
I believe it's the next step of growth for humanity.
Okay.
It's crazy. Think
Well, the
about
nice
it.
thing
How
is
many
if you have the self-awareness, then you can, and you don't have the self-management, then you can learn the self-management. It's a learnable skill, right? Well, as is self-awareness too. Yeah.
That's right. Isn't that exciting? You hit the nail on the head. The cool thing about EQ, it's not like IQ. IQ sets in about 15, and it's about the same when you're 50. IQ isn't learning more. It's your
Right.
ability and capacity to know how to think and what to do with the information and knowledge and data. IQ and personality is set. EQ, you can grow. You can change. You can become. You can experience next steps. How exciting is that, right?
Yeah.
So the two pillars, self-awareness and then self-management. And then the next would be social awareness and relationship management.
Mhm.
Those four pillars. That's why you'll be surprised. The last 8 years, I have not had a CEO, a high-level leader, a manager, a board, executive team that hasn't gone through my EQ programs and found that it took their life and their work to another level. It's become a next step of growth. And years ago, I wasn't even aware of all this stuff. I didn't know I had a low EQ. I didn't know that was part of my demise. I thought leadership and knowing how to run organizations and understanding leadership, charisma, that's all you need.
Right.
This whole other thing, it was foreign to me. So people don't leave companies. They leave people.
Right. Could
EQ
you
issues.
explain the meaning of the towel in the leadership?
Absolutely.
So you've
I'm
got
glad
the
you
title,
asked.
and then maybe you could explain the towel. Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, absolutely, Richard. So what about the towel leader? We've heard a little bit about title leader. What about the towel leader? Well, it's so fun. There's a story. Now, you got to remember, I believe Jesus, along with Ken Blanchard and many others, is the greatest leader ever walked the planet. And here he is. He's 3 years in his enterprise. He is just tearing it up. I mean, he's got a global initiative, a planetary vision. He's recruiting people. They're coming on the team. They're watching this guy wax eloquence. They're watching him recruit, develop, train, inspire. I mean, he's building a team. He's got retention. I mean, things are looking good. Bottom line goals are out of the park. I mean, he's just like, life's good.
Right.
Business is good. And so he lets them know, I got to leave. I mean, like literally exit the planet. And they're going, whoa, time out. What do you mean you're leaving? Yeah, I got to leave, but I'm going to call another executive staff meeting. I want you guys to come. And they're thinking, oh man, this is going to be great. So they're all, driving over to the meeting, if they had cars. They're all getting over to the meeting. They're hanging out. Can you just imagine, Richard? They're leaning in. They're talking to each other. They're thinking, oh man, this is going to be awesome. He's going to delegate responsibility with authority. He's going to dial us in. He's going to start letting us know who runs what. I'll probably be the CEO. You'll be the CFO. You might be COO, but I'm going to be the guy. I mean, you got to admit, I'm the one who speaks best, leads best. I mean, they're going, you can hear them, right? And they're waiting, bated breath, leaning in. And then Jesus picks up a towel. He picks up a basin and he starts washing feet.
Right.
Talk about counterintuitive. Talk about spinning their head on their shoulders. They're like, whoa, 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 time out. Are you kidding me? That's all you got? You're the guy. I mean, you're leaving. You're leaving your organization to us. Come on, man. Give us some stuff. Give us the high-level leadership stuff. I mean, level 5 leadership stuff. And he didn't say anything. Just washed his feet. And he says, I want you to know something. Do to others as I have done to you. What? You gotta be kidding me. I don't wash feet. I don't do feet. See, they're thinking it's about a feet thing. And, in Palestine back then, you don't wash feet. That's disgusting. That's gross. The bond slaves of the bond slaves wash feet. I mean, parents might, wash, their each other's feet, husband and wife. You don't wash feet. They didn't get it. So here he models, for the first time, towel leadership. And he starts showing them the full extent of his love. Imagine what it must have felt like for this counterintuitive last executive meeting, and he blows their circuits with washing feet. Come on, man. Wrapping yourself with a towel. Give me something real. Give me something of substance. I got a company to run. I got business to take care of. I got bottom line goals. I got multi-million-dollar deals that are waiting to be signed. Come on. Don't give me this hocus pocus junk. This, you already, don't give me this EQ, touchy-feely, let me burp you more and hug you longer stuff either, right? EQ is getting the misunderstanding, the mislabel of soft skills. Right. Oh, that's for the soft skill stuff. The people who don't know how to say thank you and please or something. No, it's actually part of human design to live at full capacity. And most of humans are underfed and underled in that area. So he washes feet. He models towel leadership, not title leadership. He starts showing them, hey, this is what it's like. I want you guys to know, I want you to live your life to give it away. Mm-hmm. I want you to, all the gifts, abilities, and talents, the skill set, the gift mix that I've given you, I want you to give it away to better everyone's life that I lead to you. Whoever you work with, I want them to know that their life's going to be better because you're their leader. We're going to turn that pyramid upside down. You're going to be gifted and so powerful as a leader that everybody around you, if they were interviewed, they'd say, ever since I started working with Richard, my life is better professionally and personally.
Right.
I feel complete. But there's a price to pay to be a towel leader in this society, I've found out. We live in a world where right is wrong and wrong is right, like I stated at the beginning of our conversation together. And there's a cost to this. I think, Richard, that's not why, I think it might be why not many leaders are signing up.
Right.
There's not a shortage of towels, let me tell you. You got to do a little bit of vision casting and inspiring to get people to grab hold of a towel and leave their title. When Jesus' team, this is the uncreated creator walking around on the planet saying, I'm the guy who made everything and I'm washing feet. I want you guys to catch a glimpse of this thing. This is pretty serious. So what do? You got to realize servant leaders live to give their life away. That's your presence. Will you live to give your life away? Your presence needs to communicate to people, I'm here for you. Your time is my time. What you want, I want. Your joy is my joy. Your success is my success. It's silly. I was in college. One of the greatest leaders, Dr. Schaefer. The guy has 2 degrees. All right, I'm in college. I'm eating breakfast of champions. I'm trying to get a Snickers bar out of the machine. And I'm trying to get one. I don't have enough money. He walks by. He says, hey, Bobby. First of all, how do you even know my name? Right? Dr. Schaefer. I said, oh, man, I'm just trying to get a candy bar. And he said, well, what's wrong? I said, well, I think I'm short a dime. He said, oh, wait a minute. I got a dime. And he says, I've got one in my desk in my office. I'll be back. And I'm like, oh, no, I'm good. I'm thinking, oh, not Dr. Schaefer. You're going to go get in your car and drive to your office to get me a dime? You're killing me. 20 minutes later, this guy comes back with a dime, puts it in my hand. And I thought, what? That's servant leadership. That happened when I was 23 years old. Here I am, 50-something, and didn't want to reveal, too much there. And I'm still talking about this servant leadership example that just rattled my cage. I've never recovered from it. He just gave me a dime, Richard.
Let me ask you. Let me ask you a question, Bobby. I know in your your leadership book, you talk a lot about transition, and you actually have a quote from William Bridges in his book, and it's failure to identify and be ready for endings and losses that change produces is a single problem that organizations in transitions encounter. Could you give us some tips and some ideas about how a leader can go through a transition as they go from maybe a title and they're choosing a towel leadership? Like, what does that look like? And is there a way to do it without pain? And like, how can a leader approach this transitionary period?
Yeah, that's an insightful question. Let me try to give at least a summary-worthy tag down of that.
Okay.
When you're running a company, if you're the CEO, the CFO, if you're the major, if you're the board, the president, whatever it is, the president of the board, and you see, here's the thing. First of all, I need to remind all of us as leaders.
Yeah.
We don't have the luxury to grow up in private. We have to grow up in public.
Right.
We lost that privilege. So we get to grow up in public. And when you're growing as a leader, and every leader should be growing, the moment you stop growing, you start dying. Right? Change is inevitable. Growth is an option.
Yeah.
So you keep growing. You got to grow in front of your people. It's not like you can disengage for a few months and go get your stuff together.
Right.
You got to grow there. You have to decide how authentic and real you're going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to pay a price.
Yeah.
You're going to need to be. You're going to need to know. You got to share. Hey, I'm going through a transition, and it's affected and infected some of our culture here at our company.
Yeah.
And we're going to be in the middle of a change and kind of like a change and transition project.
Yeah.
And I need to apologize to you guys.
Right.
I need to let you know that some of and whatever he's learned at that point or she has learned at that point of their leadership, my low EQ or my inability to connect or some ego issues has caused a disgruntled culture and an infected culture. But I want you to know I'm committed to cleaning it up. And I'm committed to learning and growing. Would you walk with me?
Right.
You put that type of authenticity on display, you're going to blow people's minds.
Yeah.
It's going to be messy. You remind them it's going to be messy. I won't do it all right. I won't do it perfectly. Would you walk with me? Okay. Now, if you've got trust change built up with your people, it's easier. Yeah. If you've been the aloof, control and command CEO or head leader who believes that getting too close to your people confuses buddy versus boss, mm-hmm. you're going to have some difficulties because you didn't develop much trust change. Yeah. And you're going to have to build some trust again with some folks. You might have to do some one-on-ones. You might have to say, hey, Richard, I realize that I haven't really been connecting with you well. I don't even know what's going on with your wife, Cindy, recently with the cancer, and I apologize. I want to make that right. I want you to know I'm recommitting to you personally, not just what you do for my company. Yeah. These are some of the practical things that affect you when you start experiencing the title transition into towel leadership, the servant leadership model. Just real practical stuff. And then you have to prepare your organization. So you cast vision, you bring your team together, you let them know, here's what it's going to feel like and look like for the next 3, 4, 5, 6 months as we transition our organization. And part of the transition is me navigating your emotions and my emotions through this process. It's going to be messy. Yeah. Are you guys on board? Will you walk with me? You're asking people to sign up on your journey. It's not easy stuff. Some people bail. And some people, you gain trust and credibility overnight, just overnight. I have seen instantaneous. When I have encouraged my executive, as an executive coach, my CEOs, my coaches, my boards, when I've said, I would encourage you to consider, they got to make the decision. This is what I would encourage you to consider. And I've given them these types of things to consider. Mm-hmm. Not once have they come back and said, that's the worst thing I've ever done in my lifetime. Okay. They have said it was messier than I thought. Some have said, it's the day my whole company turned around culture-wise. You got to remember, culture eats vision for lunch. So when you start working on the culture and you embody, when you're a product of the product and you begin to live out your core values, your people catch on really quickly because people do what people see, right?
Yep.
So to answer profound question there, Richard, that's some of the process.
Yeah.
Much more to say. In my book, Relational Leadership, I go into more detail.
Yeah. So Bobby, can you give us some practical ideas about how we could move into a more servant leadership style?
Absolutely. You know, sometimes we think things into oblivion. We make it too difficult. We know that the current leadership model, anywhere where title leadership is moving predominantly, you're going to have a culture, a business, a company, a movement that's at risk. It's not going to have it's going to have a short shelf life.
Right.
The leader's going to burn out. The leadership is going to hit a ceiling, and they're going to hit the wall of the lid. Yeah. And it's going to affect and impact the organization. And no organization has ever grown further than the leader leading it. Right. So it's going to create a lid that's going to stagnate the growth. Yeah. And so servant leadership needs to be a reality, and it needs to be very practical. I mean, Monday morning stuff. We're talking about walk in on Monday and go, oh my gosh, this stuff, I can do this. And some of the things that I think about in servant leadership, it's real important. And we've heard this a million times, right? People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Right.
So I put a little acrostic together over the years, and I just think, make it simple. What are the most healthy, most successful organizations? The most simple. Simple structure. Hard work creates easy money. Simple structures creates longevity, successorship, and it creates legacy organizations. Keep it simple. And so the first thing that I think a servant leader needs to really think about, and the C-A-R-E, the C is credibility. Servant leaders understand that credibility with their people is so very, very important. One of my coaches years ago told me this. He said, hey, Alan, I want you to know something. Credibility comes with high visibility with people. And one thing I learned back then from this coach was you got to be with your people. Yeah. People don't follow the mysterious, can't find Lone Ranger leader when they don't know where you're at or what you're doing. Hang out with your people. Do you know if your people feel like they know you, like you, and trust you? Yeah. You get credibility with them by just connecting and caring for them, showing up. Yeah. If I were to ask your people, if you're being a servant leader, this would be an easy question. If I were to go to XY, if I were to go to, CEO Joe's company and say, and interview his people and say, do you feel like, we'll call CEO Joe, do you feel like you're an interruption to Joe or an opportunity? There's credibility issues. Yep. Open door policies, connect with your people, know their spouse by name, know their people by name, know their children by name. Credibility comes with high visibility with your people. Ask your team, what does it feel like to be on the other side of me? Right. See how credible that answer is. And really listen. And it's not a time to defend yourself or explain something. Yep. You just listen. How's your credibility? The A in care, CA, is add value to them on a daily basis. I mean, intentionally put it in your schedule and call it SBWA, serving by walking around. Right. And just go walk around the cubicles, get on the elevator and go to all the floors of your company and walk around. Serving by walking around. What do? You give a word, a look, a touch. You find them and you give them a word. You give them a look. You look at them in the eyes, you smile, you tell them something that's true and real and special about them. Shake their hand, touch their shoulder. I tell you, it will just melt people to have favor for you. Raise your credibility. Yeah. What do you mean? I literally just I was sharing this with a company. I'll just call it a company, very successful organization in the country. And I asked them, would you consider all of you execs, all of you guys at the top, write it in your calendar and just call it SBWA time. 15 minutes, just 15 minutes, one time a week. Serve by walking around.
Serve by walking around. Okay.
And they started serving by walking around. They started saying, hey, I think I can do this. And while you're doing it, over-celebrate and under-evaluate your people. It's not a time to correct them or tell them something that wasn't as good as you wanted or you almost did it. You over-celebrate, you under-evaluate. And just add value to them. Intentionally add value. Tell them how much you appreciate them. Tell them how important they are to you as a person, not just for the work they produce for you. C. The C was credibility. Comes with high visibility with people. The A is add value to them on a daily basis. R is recalibrate your expectations of them. What do you mean, recalibrate your expectations? We all have expectations. It's called expectation management. Servant leaders need to be masters of this. What I think should be done and how it should be done can't be forced on you. And all my direct reports need to know that I'll meet them where they at, according to who they are, according to the level of what they have to produce in the moment. So if they're not meeting my expectations, I got to recalibrate my expectations to meet them where they're at so that I could do 4 things in this process. The first thing a servant leader understands is the as is of each employee or each associate or each one of their staff. What do you mean the as is? Well, Richard, if you were to go to an estate sale or a garage sale and buy something, I'll take that. And the guy begins to give it to you and he says, I just need you to know it's as is. That's informing you what? Okay. I get it for what it is. In order for you to buy that on the spot, you have to recalibrate your expectations. Otherwise, your expectations will be too high. You'll be frustrated. You won't be happy. The purchase will feel like a scam. You'll be upset. But on the spot, you recalibrate your expectations. When you're working with your people as a servant leader, you get the privilege to recalibrate your expectations of them to meet them where they are, not where you want them to be. You meet them in their as is. Then you'll be able to, guess what the next step is? You'll be able to clearly be able to help them understand what the minimum appropriate expectation is. Their as is, as you recalibrate where they're at, now you can exercise your minimum appropriate expectation of them, which moves into clearly what their next step of growth is so that you can participate in their ideal.
Right.
If you're a title leader or a leader in a hurry or a driven leader or a leader with an agenda that's focused on your reputation only, your bottom line only, you're going to push your people and you're going to start with the ideal. Right. You're going to make people try to produce something in their work and personally that they're not prepared to do. Your leadership investment and your opportunity to grow them is supposed to help them get there. Right. The process that I've found as a servant leader is you've got to study your people, become an expert of them. Yeah. Know their as is, then you'll know the minimum expectation, the minimum appropriate expectation, then you'll know what their next step is. You can participate to get them to their ideal, what they really want to be and become, and how you want to help develop them as a leader.
Right.
CAR, recalibrate your expectation of them to meet them where they are, not where you want them to be. And the E is encourage them specifically, not generally. When you over-celebrate and under-evaluate, why do we over-celebrate? Because most people feel bad about themselves. Most people feel they don't do it right, they're not good enough, everyone else is better. Oh, they're not going to like what I just turned in. Oh, no, their self-talk is usually kind of sprinkled with doubts about themselves, their production, their ability, what they bring to the table. So over-celebrate. Encourage them specifically, not generally. For example, if I encourage you, say you stayed late at work, and I said, hey, could you stay late tonight? We've got this project. We need to knock it out of the park. We've got $190 million riding on this thing. Right. Man, I'm in. I'll stay. The next day I come back and say, Richard, thank you so much for staying last night. You're a team player. Right. Oh, man. You'd say thank you. You probably feel good, right?
Yeah.
That's general encouragement.
Right.
Well, thank you. Well, hey, Bobby said thank you. Now let me run that scenario encouraging you specifically. Hey, Richard, last night when I had asked you to stay late because we had that project to finish and we had to close that deal,
Yep.
thank you for that, man. You hit it out of the park. Let me tell you when you said yes, you allowed me to get out and go visit my wife in the hospital and see my son's last inning of this baseball game. And you were the reason we signed the deal.
Right.
You're a major asset here. And I want you to know I really appreciate you as a person. I appreciate your work. Thank you so much.
Right. It's a little more powerful the second way around, right?
Isn't it? Servant leaders know how to encourage specifically, not just generally. General encouragement makes you feel good. Specific encouragement changes your life forever. It puts an investment deposit in you, and it just takes you through the roof. You feel like you can walk on water, man. And you feel so loved and appreciated. And that's what servant leaders want. They want to know that you're just not a hired hand. You're not my means to my end. No, I really believe that relationships trump vision. I'm glad you're here, Richard. I value you. We get to be privileged as servant leaders to communicate that with honesty, with sincerity, and help people really understand that that's what's really important. So people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Right.
C-A-R-E. Servant leaders, they live to give their life away. They lead by laying down. Well, what's leading by laying down? Sounds kind of weird here. What's going on? Well, let me take a couple minutes to kind of unpack that.
Okay.
For us communicators who get to speak locally, nationally, and internationally, we pride ourselves on becoming the best we can because we want to not just communicate, we want to connect. Servant leaders know you don't stand up to talk to make sure you get me and get what I say and you like me a lot. That's what communicators do. People who connect say, I want to get to know you. I want to know where you're at. I want to get an understanding of what your hurt habits and hangups are. I want to know a little bit about you and then meet you there and then share some thoughts and ideas with you that will connect with you and take you to another level.
Right.
Now, what's interesting, when we first start learning to communicate, communicators love to hear this. Man, you're great on your feet. Well, that's a compliment.
Right.
But one thing I learned about being great on your feet, it's connected to 3 levels. The 3 things I want to share are this: leading from your feet, leading from your knees, leading from laying down.
Right.
Leading from your feet, that motivation and power comes from what I call external motivation.
Right.
You connect because what's going on out there, it's them, those, that, they, the stimulus, the environment. You feed off me, I feed off you. There's a return, but it's a short shelf life. The thing about staying on your feet only is you could turn into only a communicator with information dispensing, and you miss being a connector who takes people and connects live stories, real life in real time with real people that can move them to the next step of their life, both personally and professionally.
Right.
So you get stuck on your feet and you can lose sight. And as a title leader, you can get a buzz off the people and you can feel good about yourself and you end up speaking, but it's really more for you again. And he's a great speaker. Gosh, he's great on his feet. Well, pretty soon you live long enough, you find out that has a short shelf life. Your book sales go down and people aren't calling you as much. You think, what's wrong? You're not connecting. You're waxing eloquence. The polysyllabic jargon and semantic footwork had its heyday. Now what, right? Then you move to leading from your knees. Because it's kind of humbling. Then you get to your knees, you start throwing up these kind of prayers. All of a sudden you get kind of spiritual. Oh, God, if you're really there, help me out. Book sales are down. What am I going to do? And all of a sudden you start realizing a different motivation kicks in here. Leading from your feet is external motivation. Leading from your knees is internal motivation. You develop perseverance, stick-to-itness. I don't quit. I don't give up. I push through, pull myself up by my bootstraps. I got this. Leading from your knees, it's more humble of a posture, but it's still easy to be seen by the people, get a buzz. You still can serve self as a title leader and every once in a while move into a towel leader. It's better, but it still has a short shelf life. And then finally, after a while, you just give up and say, you know what? Hey, God, if you're real, I can't do this without you. You got to power me up. You got to do this thing. You gave me the gifts, abilities, and talents, and I'm going to give them back to you. Let's see what you want to do. That's leading by laying down.
Right.
You're surrendered. Now you're saying, this is eternal motivation. So you move from external to internal to eternal motivation.
Right.
This is great. Collins did a great job in his book, Good to Great. I just added one thing to that fantastic, amazing book, Jim
Right.
Collins' book. I just added good to great to God.
Right.
That eternal motivation leading from laying down. Hey, you ever try to do anything laying flat on your back, trying to be productive and diligent? You need something else or someone else to empower you and to power something up to get the job done. You find yourself desperately dependent, not independently desperate. So you start learning to lead by laying down. And guess what? You're not interested in getting the buzz off the people. You actually want to lead. And as a servant, give everything you have to benefit them and not make it about yourself anymore.
Yep.
There's leading by laying down. That's another practical understanding for those of us who are servant leaders and who do a lot of speaking, to remind yourself at the end of the day, when I leave, did I choose to be cute over clear? Did I choose to impress them, or did I want to impact them? So there's a few thoughts on some practical steps to how do we live this servant leadership model, this towel leadership model in real time. I mean, Monday morning stuff, right?
Thank you,
Absolutely.
Bobby. We appreciate you sharing your wisdom with us today. Next, we're going to tell you about Bobby's bonus gift, and then you're going to leave us with a practice and actually something people can take home with their life and business. Before I do that, I just want to remind everybody listening that you can purchase the entire training summit through our Servant Leadership Training Kit. This gets you downloadable access to all the videos, the audios, the transcripts, and all the speaker gifts of over 35 servant leader speakers. And you can get all that for $297. The price goes up after this is over, so jump on board now. Below this link, you'll see a link that you can click, and you'll get more information about Bobby's offered a chapter from his book on relational leadership. So you can click that and get access to that. So thank you so much for that in advance, Bobby, for allowing people to download that.
Absolutely.
Now, Bobby, if you could share with our listeners one little specific practice or some servant leadership practice that they could start to implement now in their organization or life, we would be really honored to hear that.
Well, thanks, Richard. You know, one of the things that I have found very helpful, and I have shared this with, hundreds of my clients as far as, anybody, individuals, not just leaders. And not that leaders aren't individuals, but it's something very easy, very simple. Remember, I believe in putting the cookies of life and leadership on the bottom shelf, right? And so after a hard day working, and we as leaders know, man, we are just, we're neck deep in decision making and strategizing, vision casting, and we're looking for morale and mission drift and vision leakage. We're on, right?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, when you go home, before you lay your head on your pillow, just take 5 minutes every day. Remember, it's important to remember this. Experience is not the greatest teacher. Reflection with experience is the greatest teacher. Oh. So just sit there and think, put the tape on rewind and say, what did I do today? See, that's the natural inclination and thought, I'm going to say, of some title leaders. Remember, do, be, do, title leadership. Mm-hmm. What I like to suggest is before you lay your head on that pillow, you change your question to, what did I accomplish today? Not what did I do? Title leader, what did I do? How did I knock it out of the park? How good did I do? How did we grow? How much money did we take in? As you're thinking as a servant leader, what did I accomplish today through somebody else that made their life better and made their job better? How did I empower someone today? How did I add value to another person today? Every room that I entered, every person I encountered, Did I add value or did I take value? Did I leave them feeling like he added something to me or did I subtract? And it's simple. What did I accomplish today through somebody else that made their life better, both personally and professionally? You'll be surprised how it changes your focus from a title leader that could be focused more on myself to a towel leader that focuses on all the people around me who have benefited and gone to another level.
That's awesome, Bobby. Thank you. I love the idea of the reflective practice for servant leadership. It's really beautiful. So on behalf of the Servant Leadership Online Training Summit, we'd like to thank you, Bobby, again for sharing your great wisdom and experience and heart today. And thanks everybody else for tuning in and for making servant leadership a priority in your life and business. And we'll see you on the next training call. Thanks, Bobby. See you guys next time.
Thank you, Richard.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you for attending the Servant Leadership Online Training Summit. To own the Servant Leadership Training Kit, including 40 videos, full transcripts, and over 35 speaker bonuses at a 40% discount, click the upgrade button now. This special offer is limited and available only during the summit, so act now. Thank you.